Okay, so both of these are manga that I've been meaning to review for quite a while now. One of which is actually one I just recently reread, while the other is something that I kind of read and hopscotch back and forth in between. So here, we're going to talk about Kagurabachi and Gokurakugai. Now, I won't lie, both of these manga are very similar in nature and both have their differences. One from the get-go is very grim from the offset, a lot more serious, while the other starts out like a typical shonen in a sense, or at least a typical modern shonen, if you catch my drift, where things are a bit of a mix of the stuff from the past as well as now, where you have a different mix and different changes in how the story is overall presented, you know, if you catch my drift. If you read Dandadan or Chainsaw Man or other shonen that have actually come out in the last like 4 or 5 years, you kind of see what I mean. But similar to those ones, Goku no Gakkai, the one I'm talking about, does get grim as it continues, even though it does do arguably a better job of tone shifting to an extent, of being lighter, but I'll get to that when I get to that. Now, starting off with the edgy one, as some call it. Now, let me get this clear here. Kagurabachi is not really an edgy manga per se, it's just that, well, the MC is not exactly, well, Mary Poppins, if you catch my drift. He's a lot more serious, he's a lot more gruff, and he's more no-nonsense. And we see that from the first chapter, and because of that, there was a little bit of a silly spat online about him being too edgy, quote-unquote, which, to be honest, is rather silly, because God forbid we have a main character in a story that isn't a total pushover or even a joke machine, rather. Now, I'm not really throwing shade at anything right now, and this comes from a massive Chainsaw Man and Dandadan fan, but I won't lie, main character in Kagurabachi is a bit of a breath of fresh air, if I do say so, to an extent. But I will say he's rather serviceable. This is definitely a case of where the side characters and side cast, or even the antagonists and villains, shine a brighter light and have a bit more personality, which is a bit of a trope in shonen that I honest to God am getting real sick and tired of seeing. A symptom that I thought we were seeing less and less of the years went on, but here it is, front and center. A lot of other shonen series had this issue. God knows Naruto had this issue in spades, especially as that series progressed. Like, honestly, how many fans who've grown up or still love the series will actually talk about their favorite character, and a majority of those fans love pretty much almost everyone except Naruto, probably because of how he's written and how the other characters act in comparison. I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but I'm mostly just stating an example here. Circling back, I will say Kagurabachi is pretty fun. The action has weight, it's actually pretty brutal. It's incredibly well done, how the paneling and the flow of everything is pretty on point, and does remind me a bit of Bleach in some sense, but I will say that unlike Bleach, and this is coming from someone who does like Bleach to an extent, but it is kind of neat seeing a similar power set to that, but it sets itself apart from other shonen in terms of its power systems and stuff like that, actually tying into Pacific samurai fighting styles and sword techniques and adding a bit to it, a bit like Demon Slayer, but with its own little twist. I have heard some people, including those in my personal life, have said that the manga does remind them a lot of stuff from the early 2000s and the late 90s, where how things are a lot more grim, the characters have a lot more muted colors and stuff like that. And to an extent, it is similar to those, and that might be the case. But I'm not going to jump the gun too far because I don't exactly know the full background of this manga, creative-wise, to an extent. I have not gotten too far into this series, but I will say I do see there's a lot of potential for it, and considering it does have a bit of a strong following, I'm not entirely shocked at all that they stick by it and claim it's as good as they claim it is. And I will admit, I did jump ahead into a more recent chapter and was kind of blown away with what I was actually seeing and reading, and hearing from what other people were breaking down and what actually happens actually does show that this series does blossom and gets better as it progresses. So I will say, I'll keep a close eye on this one for a time being. So yeah, if you're apprehensive on Kagurabachi, go ahead and give it a read. It actually could be better than what you initially might think. It's not really a total edge fest like some other manga out there, and if anything, it's actually pretty fun. Especially if you have a real soft spot for a lot of the stuff that came out in the 2000s. Now when it comes to Gokurakugai, I will admit some personal bias here. This is one that I kind of read first a bit of a while back, and I just recently reread and caught up to. So yeah, I will not lie, of the two manga that I've currently reread, I will say this one is probably my favorite of the two that I've just checked out. Now, let me just jump right in. Okay, so let's jump right in. Now, I will say the two leads are actually pretty great, in which, yes, they do run a Manga or demon hunting agency. Drink if you ever heard that before. But the two do have a good, strong relationship, and they do bounce off each other, and their personalities are very distinct, as well as Tao's qualities. I'll end them there. I won't lie, I like the world, I like the style, I like how things are presented here. It does, admittedly, like I said, teeter on a little bit of old ground, especially now with Kaizen and Chainsaw Man and Down and On and a few others, kind of harping off very similar background fields, if you know what I mean. The whole Demon Hunter versus Demon Slayer Shonen series, which we've starting to see more of, including other clones out there. There are just countless to mention. A lot of people don't even know about, but here it does a great job of setting itself apart from others. As a matter of fact, the Manga or the demons are very similar to ghouls in Tokyo Ghoul, and what I mean by that is where there are different types of them and they all vary in terms of danger, in terms of threat level. They do in fact have personalities, and they do in fact think and are not just mindless monsters. There's a lot more to them than what we lead on, especially as the series continues. Even then, there are some really good emotional moments and points that happen later on, and arguably not even that far into the series. A lot of stuff that actually happens by like chapter 5 or chapter 6, if I'm going to be honest. Chapter 8 in particular is a massive gut punch, and slight spoilers, but Alma comes across this girl, offers her food, but we learn that she herself is in fact a Manga and struggles to control herself. She's actually let herself lose control and has eaten people in the past, and in this little mini art, Alma and Tao are actually hunting down this Manga that is basically killing people, but little do they know it's actually her. And like ghouls, like Tokyo Ghoul as mentioned before, they need to eat humans in order to live, in order to survive. They cannot eat human food, it actually makes them gag and vomit. And as we see later on down the line, they're a lot more impulsive, more sociopathic. They love to cause pain, they love to cause suffering. But as we see with her, she does bring a new layer to it, in that some of them do in fact have emotion, and a lot of them actually may not think as impulsively as the others that we came across up to that point. That she is in fact crying, and it does cause her a lot of sorrow, the fact that she is what she is. That she hates the fact that she is pretty much detached from humanity in general. And this actually sadly culminates in a really fucked up scene, which I will not spoil. Let's just say Alma actually does find out who she is and what she is and tries to help her, but things take a massive turn for the worst, as well as we get some revelations that will obviously play a role later down the line. Tao, the secondary main character, also gets a bit of backstory as we learn what happened to her as well as what happened in her past. And again, I'm not spoiling, we do see a certain event that actually happens to her that pretty much shaped who she turned into and into the character we see now, and even leading up to a certain massive reveal that is also a pretty heavy chapter. Again, will not spoil, but I will recommend you go and read for yourself. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'll end off on. I know this was kind of a shorter one than what I usually expect, and to be honest, I was mostly trying to avoid spoilers to an extent for this time around, mostly just to get more people to read them. And hopefully later on down the line, when I cover these two manga in the future, both gokurakugai and kagurabachi, hopefully they'll be their own videos in the future, and I'll actually go into more in depth as I go on. So yeah, I'll end it right there. Don't be afraid to go into the comments and recommend me a manga or comic that you think I might like and could recommend to more people. Be sure to let me know what you thought about these two series I just went over. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, all that good jazz. Take care and stay chill.